All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do this example for the rectangle quiz. Okay, so some students are having a hard time with the constructor. So I do tell you to make a constructor that it takes data for length and width for the rectangle. So what you're going to do when you're writing this class is, let me show you real quick. All right, so public class, the name of the class is rectangle, and then you have instance data for length and instance data for width. Okay, and then you have a public constructor, right? So public rectangle, the constructor always matches the name of the class. Like you have to do that. That's actually a question on your midterm. Okay, so you have to understand that. And in your square class, we only pass in one variable, but here we're going to pass in two. We're going to pass in a variable for length and a variable for width. And then we're going to say, okay, well, the length of this object is going to be equal to the length that was passed in, and the width of this object is going to be equal to the width variable that was passed in. Now, I know there's also some questions on the, oh, I'm sorry, good catch. I know there's also some questions about the getters and setters. So you should have one getter and setter for each instance data. So you should have a public void set length. And this will take in some value, and it's going to set length equal to whatever value that is passed in. And then you should also have a setter for width as well. Dang it, I didn't copy that right. All right, there you go. So you'll have a setter for each and a getter for each one, okay? So this is what we call boilerplate code, right? It just, getters and setters follow a pattern. The name of your instance data, like you put set or get in front of that with the name camel cased, where the second word is capitalized. So we have a public void set length, public void set width. Now we're going to need a public data type of the instance data, which is float, get length. And you're going to return the length. And then get width. And you're going to return the width. All right, real simple, right? And then like from there you can write your area and your perimeter equations and your toString. But basically, I mean, once you know the type of data that you need, right, or you can create your constructor, and then you can create your getters and setters, right, just from knowing the type of data that you're going to have for your instance data. Any questions on this? So go ahead and finish that. This is on Dropbox, so at least you have this to start from. Okay, if you're like super confused, if you don't understand how to write classes, you're going to do really bad on the midterm. Okay, you probably won't pass this class either. So that's why I'm giving you a bunch of quizzes on this, because it's something you have to understand. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start lecturing, but I was actually not going to lecture today. I was just going to do like another example to kind of drive this point home before you guys go on spring break. Okay, so let's think about a particular class that we want to write. And the book gives a really good example for a class for an account. I'm going to go ahead and do that example. But we're going to think about what we're going to do first, okay? So just think about a bank account, okay? So what type of information does a bank account have? That's just the type of account, but like yeah, it probably does have a type, right? So you probably will have a type, right? That would be either checking or savings, right? That's a good one. What else? What's that? Oh, that's a good one too. Balance, right? Like how much money you have in that account. Okay, good. What else? Transactions. That is good too, but that seems like super complicated for us programming at the Java 1 level, right? But yeah, no, I agree. If we do have transactions, I mean, we could write that. Write this down. How about like the name on the account, like who it belongs to, right? So, name. Is there anything else? Your name, you have your balance, you have the type of account. I think that's a good one as well. Transactions, which it's going to be really complicated to do because it's going to be kind of like a list of another, like a bunch of other sub objects, and that's more like a Java 2 type of thing. Man, I totally forgot what the book has on it. All right, let me look at what the book has. It has account number. That was the other one. I was trying to remember what the other one was. Okay, so you have a name, and then you have an account number. All right, good. All right, so what type of data do you think type is? Like if we declare, like say we have a variable called type, what type of data do you think it would hold? Like a float, int, a boolean, a char, a string. Okay, good, string, right? Actually, there's another type called enumeration. Have we talked about enumeration? We did talk about enumeration. Like you might make an enumeration for checking, savings, loan, something like that, right? But I think for us, for now, we can just simplify this and say, it could be a string, right? Balance, what do you think that would be? Float or a double. I'm gonna say double just because it's 64 bits and we don't really know like how much money this user is gonna have. Okay, transactions. We won't do transactions. I'm good. Okay, name. What do you think of the name? String. All right, and then account number. That would be an int. We could probably also use the long, which is up to 14 digits. Or actually, I have no idea. Is it 14? It's a lot higher than an int. Like just say we don't know how many accounts we're going to create. So if we use a long, we have 64 bits to represent an account number. All right, so let's make a class from what we just did. The book does not have type, right? But I actually think that's a good one to have, right? Like the type of account that this is. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna hop back over here. I'm gonna create a new file. I'm gonna save this as account. All right, you know what? How about everybody follow along with me, and this will be a quiz grade. Like I'll make it a quiz 8 grade, right? If you turn it in, you put it in Dropbox, and I'll give you a quiz grade. Just because I think you'll learn more if you're typing along with me. Okay. All right. So I'm going to make a class for account, right? This is a blueprint for an object. So we're going to make an account with these 4 instance data, right? A type, a balance, a name, and an account number. So I made the file called account. So I'm gonna say public class account, and then private. Let's see. We need a string for the name on the account. We need a long for the account number. We need a double for the balance. And then we need a string for the type. All right. All right. So those are my 4 types of data that I have for this account. So if I was going to make a getter and setter for each one of those pieces of information, how would that actually look? All right, I'm going to hop back over here. My type would be set type, right? And I would also have get type. Okay, the balance would be set balance and get balance. The name would be set name and get name. And the account number would be set account number and get account number. All right, so I'm gonna hop back to this file over here, and I'm gonna go ahead and just create all the setters for my instance data. Okay, and they all follow the same pattern. Public, because this is an interface, so you want it to be accessible through the instance of the object. So public void, and then set name, and name is a string, so that means you're going to take in a string for the name, and then what you're going to set your name variable equal to whatever value that was passed in. Okay. Then we just say public void set account number, and then we're going to take in a long for the account number. I'll just put A there, and then we'll say account number will be equal to whatever A is. The next setter is going to be for my balance, which is a double. So public void set balance. Since it's double, you're going to take in a double. We'll say B, and we'll say balance is equal to whatever value that was passed in. And the last one is the type. So public void set type. We'll take in a string, so we'll say T, and we'll just say type is equal to T. All right, really simple, right? I made those setters based off the names of my instance data. They all follow the same pattern. Public void set, and then the name of the actual instance data. The type of data that you take in is going to be equal, or the same type that you've declared your variable as, right? So up here you have you said string name is a string, so you're going to take in a string for name. Account number is a long, so you're going to take in a long for account number. Balance is a double, so you're going to take in a double for balance. And type is a string, so you're going to take in a string for type. I'll let you guys catch up. I'm going to, what's making that noise? One of the PCs.
It's always that.
Oh, that's the one on here. What is it?
Yeah, that one's on. Is the light on? That one is the light on.
Well, that is on.
They're
They're both on.
Is that one?
Is it yours now that's making that noise? I think if I turn it off, it's gonna turn your computer off. I guess you're gonna have to get annoyed by it all class period. All right, so anybody need more time to catch up?
Like 20 more seconds. A little bit. Almost.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the getters. Okay, so now that we've done the setters, let's do the getters. So I'm gonna say getters for instance data. They're all gonna have a similar pattern, just like the way the setters did. Okay, so this time what the get service is providing is whenever you call get, you're returning back data of whatever it is they're requesting. So it's gonna be public because you want, like when you make something public, it means you can call it through the instance of the object, and then you're gonna say public, and then you're gonna the data type that you're gonna return. So for a name, we said name was a string. So we're gonna say public string get name. You don't take in any data inside of this method, so you have open and close parentheses, and then inside your method, you simply just use the return reserve word, and you pass out the name. So if we're gonna do the same thing for balance, or actually, what was next? Account number. So account number is a long, so we're gonna say public long get account number. We're not passing any data into this method, so we're gonna have open and close parentheses, and then inside of this method, we're simply just gonna say return, and then the account number. All right. So next thing is the balance. So the balance is a double. So public double get balance, and then return the balance. Next one is public string, right, for the type. I'm going to say get type. We're going to return the type. All right. They all kind of have the similar pattern, right? Public, the type of data they're returning, get, and then the name of the instance data. So in this case it was name, this case it was account number, this case it was balance, this case it was type. And then the return statement just simply gives back the data. So whoever's calling this is going to actually receive the value that is being passed out. Sure.
It's about previous quarters.
Yeah.
It's a different problem. I set my width and length to different numbers, right? But when I print them out, like, get width, get length, the numbers are swapped.
Oh, then you're not taking it in correct.
So 4 and 4. So I just put 4 and 4 as a placeholder. And then this is, I want to set that up.
It says to go to those methods. Or go to your rectangle. So. That's interesting. I don't see why it would be swapping.
Yeah, that's what it's giving me right here.
Oh, I see. Because you're saying you're going to leave this and going to get the width is going to get.
That is the second time I've prepared myself. I'm gonna blow my brains out of something like that. First a backwards C, now this, like.
All right, you guys ready for me to move on? I take that as a yes. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and test what I have, right? We've kind of wrote a lot of stuff, right? We declared our instance data, and then we wrote the getters and setters for instance data. Now, they all follow a similar pattern, so like you need to get comfortable with doing this, depending on what you define as your instance data, okay? But it's pretty simple if you understand this, like how this should be written out. So I'm going to go ahead and make a class to test my account object. So I'm going to come over here and say new, and then save as. I'm going to call this one account test. It's going to have the main method. So this is going to be our driver class. We're going to say public class. Oh, I saved it as text. Dang it. Let me save this again. Save as account.java. All right. So public class, the name of my class, and then I'm going to have my main method. So public static void main string array arguments. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and declare an instance of my account. So I'm going to say account, and I'm going to say ACCT1 is equal to new account, open close parentheses. Now, the reason why I'm not passing any data inside of this account is because I don't have a constructor defined over here, right? There's no constructor. Okay, I don't have one defined, so Java automatically gives you a constructor, a default constructor that takes no parameters. So that's the way I'm going to instantiate an account object. Now if I were to say system.out.println and then print all the information out, I'll just say like name is something. I'll just say plus account1 dot get name, open close parentheses. I'm going to copy this 4 times for each instance data. So I have a name, I have an account number, I have a balance, and I have a type of account. Let's say account type. Okay, so for the name, I call get name. For the account number, I'm going to call get account number. For the balance, I'm going to call get balance. And for the type, I'm going to call get type. You know, I'm thinking, the more I think about this, the more I think that account number seems redundant, right? Because it's on the account class. So why would you call it account number? You should call it number. But I guess that could be confused with phone number. I don't know. But all right, so that's what I have so far. So let me go ahead and compile this. So to compile from Notepad++, so I'm going to go to File, and then Open Containing Folder, and then go to CMD. I'm going to hit Java C account test.java. It compiled, so Java account test to run, and you can see my data has not been set. The name on the account is null, the account number is 0, the account balance is 0, and the account type is null. So whenever you have a instance data that is an object like a string, if it is not set, then that means it doesn't point to anything in memory. So Java marks it as being null, meaning it doesn't point to anything. Okay, so that's why it's kind of important to actually have objects take in data when they're first instantiated. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my account class and define a constructor that takes in a name, takes in an account number, takes in an initial balance, and takes in an account type. Oh, do you have a question? Good. You don't? All right, so I'm going to go back to account. And I'm going to, under this comment constructor, I'm going to define a new constructor. I'm going to say public account. And I'm going to take in data for everything that I want to initialize. So I want to initialize the name. I want to initialize the account number. I want to initialize the balance. And I want to initialize the account type. Okay, notice how the data type inside of the parameter list, this is what we call our parameter list. Notice how the data type matches the data type of the data that I want to set, right? So I take in a string for name. Tell me, I have a question?
Comma after double, sorry.
What's that?
You put a comma after double.
Oh, thanks. I have a string for name. I have a long for account number. I have double for, I don't know why I put B. Oh, for balance, okay? And then I have a string for type, okay? So I'm going to say name is equal to N. Account number is equal to A. Balance is equal to B. And type is equal to T. Right, I'm taking all that data into my constructor so that I can set my instance data. Okay, now that I saved it, if I go back to the command prompt where I try to compile and run, if I recompile, it doesn't work because now it's telling me that I need to pass in data into this instance, right, that I'm trying to create. Okay, so here's my constructor. I'm taking in a string, long, double string. I'm setting all this data. So I'm going to cut back over here, and now I need to actually pass in that type of data. So string, for the name, I'll just say Mike. My initial balance, or no, actually the next one was account number, right? So I'll say like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this might actually give me an error if I don't put an L here for long, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it off and see what happens. Okay, and then my initial balance, I'll say, you know what, I deposited $500 initially, and then the type is going to be a checking account. So I'm just going to say checking. Save that. Hop over to command prompt. I'm going to clear my screen. Compile. Okay, Java was okay with not taking in, or taking in an integer for account number. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and run this. And now when I run, you can see that all my data is set. Right, whenever I call my getter. Okay. And all I did was just make this constructor. You guys got the constructor down? All right, so some of the other things that I always tell you to do is test and verify everything works. So you should come over here to count 1 and just verify that you can set the name to something different, right? And verify that you can change the account number to something different. Although it doesn't make sense to change the account number. So maybe that's that service that we provide for like a legitimate class that's for a bank. Okay. and make sure that we can actually set the balance. So now I have, instead of 500, I have 700. And now make sure that we can set the type. All right, so I just changed all the data. I'm going to copy what I did up here. I'm going to paste it underneath it. I'm going to compile and rerun this class. Compiles, I run. You can see that this is the initial information. After I called some setters, that is my new information. All right, the name is Bob, account number has changed, the balance has changed, and the savings has changed, or the account type. All right, so now let's start thinking about, so what we've created was just a simple class that just holds data and lets you set it and get it, right? But what are some other services that you think an account will provide?
Transfer.
Oh, that's, okay, yeah, that's actually a good one, transfer. You can transfer. So I'm gonna say services, other services that we're gonna have, you can transfer, but yeah, I don't think we can do that right now, right? Because you would have to have two accounts, transfer some money to another one.
Transaction history.
Well, transaction history is another good one, but that's another super complicated one that we would be like a Java 2 type of thing. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and put transaction history. That's a good one. I mean, it's good that you're thinking like, okay, what does this account, like what are some other services it provides? Okay, how about withdrawing and depositing, right? You're gonna withdraw like $100, your balance should change by $100. If you're gonna deposit, $200, your balance should go up by $200, right? So I'm gonna say you're gonna be able to withdraw and deposit. Okay, so these are methods that aren't associated specifically with getting and setting instance data, but they're additional services that the account provides that we're going to have to come up with what it actually does, right? So let's hop back over to the account class, and underneath our getters and our setters, we're going to make other service methods. I'll just call it like other service methods. And I'm going to say public void deposit. Okay, and we're going to have to take in some type of value of how much we're going to deposit, and let's just say, it's since balance is double, we'll take in a double. Okay, and we'll just call this amount that they're going to deposit, and now balance is going to equal itself plus the amount. Okay, now remember the plus equals simply means whatever itself is equal to itself plus amount, right? So itself plus the thing that's being added. That's what the deposit is. The other one is a withdrawal, which is very similar, right? So we'll say withdraw, we'll say double amount, and balance is going to be equal to minus equals, right, itself minus whatever the amount is. I'm going to copy this line and because it's very similar. So yeah, subtract. Okay, but I mean, some things that you might want to consider, perhaps when we get to chapter 5, we know about if statements, is you might want to check to make sure the balance can actually has enough, is high enough to where it can handle withdrawing this amount, right? Like say they wanted to withdraw $200, but you only have $150, right? You do some type of check to prevent that, obviously, right? But we're not at that level yet. That's like the very next chapter. So for now, I mean, it's good to think about that, but for now, we're just going to subtract the amount that we want to withdraw from our balance. And this is going to be the like how much you want to deposit. So what are some things we should check on that? Maybe like the amount coming in is positive, right? Oh shoot, what the heck? I don't know what I just did. Okay, so those are two additional methods that we provide through an account. So let's go ahead and test them. So what I'm going to do is go to my test class down here, and I'm going to say account. I want to deposit. We'll say like deposit $1,000, and then I want to see what my new balance is. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this line right here and print out what my balance is. Okay. And then maybe I'll do like a system just for clarity of what I'm doing on the output. I'll do a system.out.print line, and I'll just say something like new line, deposit, 1,000. And I'm going to test my withdrawal, and then here I'm going to say withdrawal. We'll say 250. All right. And we'll go ahead and see what our balance is after those two methods are called. So I'm going to come over here, compile, run. I'm going to scroll down. This was my balance before I deposited anything. I deposited $1,000. That's my new balance. Then I withdrew $250, and this is my new balance. And I messed something up, right? That's not right. So let me hop back over to my driver class. And the reason why it didn't work is because I called deposit instead of withdrawal. Let me clear my screen, compile, run. Okay, now when I withdraw 250, you can see that the balance changes by 250. All right, good. All right, so this is the idea and the concept behind writing the class. Now, like I said, to me personally, it doesn't really make sense to have a getter and a setter for account number. It makes sense to keep track of it, but like once you created that account, why would you, like there's no way to change the account number, right? Normally, like I would think, like maybe changing the name seems something feasible. The balance and the type and all that to me also seems like something that you would do. But depending on what you're trying to do, it's up to you to determine if you actually want to have a getter and a setter.
Sir,
Yes.
you kind of left me to dust a while ago.
Oh,
That job.
okay.
I just need to-
It's on Dropbox, so you could follow along that way if you need to look at this, what I have. Anyways, so it's up to you to determine if you actually want to provide the getter and setter service, but you also need to think about additional services that you're going to provide for this object. The whole transfers thing is a really good one. The transaction history, that was also a really good one, right? Like you're thinking about what account actually does. But for our level, the ones that we did were withdrawal and deposit. It's simply adding and subtracting from your balance. So these are additional services. Now in the book, it does tell you to make getters and setters for everything. So even though if you think about it long enough, an account number is probably something that should stay constant for the duration of the account. So you wouldn't want to provide a getter and setter for that. Like the only time that you create it is perhaps when they first open the account, and you probably don't even take it through the constructor. It's probably something that is randomly generated and doesn't match other customers' account numbers, right? Because it's a unique identifier. But the book is going to have you make getters and setters for everything. Okay. And with that information, we were able to create this class. Okay. So we had our 4 pieces of instance data. With those 4 pieces of instance data, we made our setters, right? We made 4 setters for each one. Then we made 4 getters for each one. And then we said, okay, well, let's make a constructor to initialize all our data. So we're going to accept data and initialize it to whatever we're accepting. And then we also made additional services that this account can do, which is deposit an amount and withdraw an amount. All right, any questions on this? So go ahead and finish typing this up. Let me see it. Let me see you finish typing it up. I'll give you a grade for quiz number, what is this, 8? But that is all I have for today. You guys are free to go once I see this work.
Just wants to drop it.
No, I don't. I want to see it before you leave. If you leave right now, you're not going to retain any of this information. Actually, hold on. I need to put the quiz up really quick so that I can give you a grade for it.